What's up, friends? Time for another video this week, and this time we're going to look at the Grotmas Detachment stats for the first 6 weeks. We're going to look at the player detachment numbers, we're going to look at the win rates, and the amount of tournament wins for each Grotmas Detachment. It's been about 6 weeks since the last one was released, so I thought it was a good time to look back and see how the Christmas season treated each army. So sit back, relax, and let's get right to it. Quickly before we get started, we'll do the old YouTube pleasantries. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button. It really helps spread that video out for more people to see. If you really liked it and you want to see more, make sure you subscribe. It really helps support me, support the channel, and make sure you get all the latest videos. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Alright, the first thing we're going to look at is the Subfaction player count. So this is the number of players for each Grotmas Subfaction. So at the top there, we can see that Starshatter Arsenal for the Necrons is at 190 players. Grey Knights with the warpbane is 112. Solar Spearhead for Custodes, 98. Creations of Bile for Chaos Space Marine, 75. And Bridgehead Strike is 70. And all tied with Legion of Excess for 70 in the 5th spot. Down at the bottom, we have the 3 that only had 1 representation. Armor Warhouse for Eldari, Questor Forge Pack for Imperial Knights, and the Hex Warp Thrall Band for the Thousand Suns. Clearly, people did not care for those Grotmas detachments. They were a big swing and a miss, and only 1 person has brought each one. Some other ones to note, Librarius Conclave, for how popular Space Marines are and for how well they're doing right now. They only have 12 players who brought the Librarius Conclave, so clearly, competitively, not the best one. Not that Space Marines need it right now. They're doing pretty well without an extra really good detachment. Wrathful Procession for Black Templars, only 3 people. Black Templars kind of in a little bit of a rough spot. They got a little nerfed, and a good detachment would help them out, but that's not what they got, unfortunately. The Warrior Bioform Onslaught for Tyranids, also another really popular army. A lot of players doing okay in the meta, nothing crazy, but they only have 11 players. So another army that kind of got a fluffy list maybe with the Warrior spam, but they definitely didn't get a competitive detachment. Alright, the next one we're going to look at is the comparison of the detachment players versus the total faction players. So this kind of gives you just a rough idea of how popular they are within each faction. So Starshatter has 190 players, and Necrons as a total have 282. So Starshatter's sitting like 67% of players bring in Starshatter to the tournaments if they bring Necrons at all. Warpbane Task Force for Grey Knights, 112 out of 130 players. So this one is even more popular than Starshatter. Now, they only have 2 detachments because they don't have their codex yet, but still, they released that Grotmas detachment, and people really took a liking to it, with over, I think, 80% of people bringing it. Rounding out the top 5, you have Spearhead, Solar Spearhead, for the Custodes, Creations of Bile, and then the Bridgehead and Legion of Excess kind of tied at the back there. All these armies are, of course, very popular armies, over at least 130 players. But they are also popular detachments within their army, so you know that they're either fun to play or fairly competitive. Down at the bottom, we're going to look at a couple armies here that are clearly struggling. So you look at, of course, there's all the ones with just the 1 representation, but Armor Warhouse for Eldari, 150 players. They should be up near the top, but only 1 person has brought them. And that's an army right now that doesn't have their codex out as of recording, so they only have 2 options, and clearly no one wants to play the Armored Warhouse. Same as Questor's Forge Pack and the Hex Warp. They all are just indexed right now, and they still only have 1 people bringing them, so they are huge swings and misses. Librarius Conclave, 12 players, 310. So they are the most represented army, Space Marines as a whole, but only 12 people have brought them. So that's like just under 5% or something. So that's a really low number, really not popular. Same as the Warrior Bioform, 205 players. Only 11 people brought them. Definitely more of a fluffy list, not a competitive list. With Plague Legion, they're also very low, but if you kind of mix in Blood Legion, Scintillating Legion, and Legion of Excess for all the Demon Grotmas detachments that released, they'd actually be the second highest. They'd be just ahead of the Warpbane. So their demons as a whole are doing quite well with these detachment releases. Now, this is, as us demon players, it might be a last hurrah, as we may or may not have a standalone codex anymore and just get folded into the Chaos Space Marine ones for each god as they get released. But we're hoping as a faction that we continue to exist, but we'll see. But for now, it's nice to see that everyone is bringing their armies out and playing with the sort of individual god fluff that they can while they still can. And moving on, this is just a simple win percentage. In the next slide, I'll get into a little more details comparing it against the armies and the representation. But for now, I just want to show you a quick win percentage. At the top, you got Legion of Excess, 65%. Not surprising. They're winning a lot of tournaments. They have a huge percentage of the player base playing them. They're doing really well. Angelic Inheritors for Blood Angels, 59% win rate. They're not doing too bad as a whole. It's kind of surprising to see, but we'll get a little more details on the next slide. Bridgehead and Tactical Brigade also at 59%. Not surprising there. The Asher Militarum Bridgehead, very popular army. They're showing up a lot in tournaments and in teams tournaments, and they're definitely a very powerful detachment. And Tactical Brigade is, with the new tank busters in their data sheet, they're a very popular army as well, very strong. Kind of brings some shooting to orcs, which is something people love, but usually not too effective. So when it becomes effective, you see it a lot. And down at the bottom, you have some ones that are struggling a little bit. Lion's Blade, 31% win rate. For Dark Angels, they're just kind of ho-hum in the middle of everything, so you kind of would have hoped for a little bit better, kind of spice that faction up a little bit, but it is what it is. They're down at the bottom. Champions of Faith, 42% win rate. It kind of mirrors how the rest of Sisters is going, just sitting around 40%. There were nothing fancy there, nothing good to kind of help them out after all the nerfs. Librarius Conclave, 35% win rate, and based on the amount of players playing them, it's not surprising. With only 12 people, the win rate's probably not that high. And a couple of the other ones to mention: Black Spear for Deathwatch, 55% win rate. That detachment brought them back as an army, raised them from the dead, so it's nice to see them doing fairly well. And Starshatter, for as many people playing them, they're only 52% win rate. Some of that has to do with the nerfs they did receive. It did bring them down a little bit, but they never quite got up to those even Legion of Excess, 65% rates. But I think they're just a good army with lots of fun play, and people are enjoying it. And now we're going to move on to the next chart here. This combines Subfaction win rate, the faction win rate, and the percentage of players in the faction playing the Grotmas Detachment. So, as an example, Legion of Excess, the detachment has 65% win rate. The faction, like Chaos Demons as a whole, has 53%. And 36% of demon players are bringing Legion of Excess. So this is a nice way to break down how the subfaction's doing compared to the faction, and then how popular it is within the faction. So this will kind of give you the best indication of how sort of good and popular the Grotmas Detachment was, and how successful it was as a release. Another ones to mention: Blood Angel, the Angelic Inheritors, 59% win rate. The faction overall has 47%, so they're doing quite a bit better than the faction is, but only 6.3% representation within the faction, so not a lot of players playing them, but the few who do bring them out are doing pretty good. Tactical Brigade and Bridgehead Strike are kind of mirroring each other a little bit here, 59% win rate each. Their factions are sitting around 50%, so they're doing considerably better than the rest of the faction, and they got a 30 to 33% representation, so they're definitely the most popular detachment within the factions, and they are doing quite well. So there's definitely a win for those factions. And just wanted to highlight Starshatter just to kind of show what I was talking about. 52% win rate, 52% win rate for Necrons as a whole, so they're just smack dab in the middle. And a lot of that is because they have over 67% representation. So over 2/3 of players are taking Starshatter to tournaments, so it's definitely up there with the most popular Grotmas attachments. And at the bottom here, just looking at Lion's Blade again, 31% win rate. Dark Angels as a whole, 47%, and they only had just over 9% representation, so kind of meh. Looking at Halo's Creed Battleclade, they 45% win rate versus 44 for the faction, so they're right on par, but 67% of people are taking them. So Adeptus Mechanicus players are enjoying the new detachment, but it's not doing any better than the rest of them. They're still kind of just sitting at the bottom of the win rates and the bottom of the play rates and everything. So it definitely didn't catapult them to the top anywhere, but it at least looks like it might be fun. A lot of people are playing it, so that's at least good to see. If they can't be good, you might as well be fun. And another one, kind of just to take a quick look at, is the Creations of Bile. 48% versus 46%, right on par with the rest of the faction, but 40% representation. Another one of those armies that isn't blowing anyone out of the water, isn't doing really well, but definitely has sort of captured the hearts of the faction and getting a lot of play rate. Now, a lot of these numbers might creep down over time as weeks go on and people kind of, are done with the new toy. But for now, people seem to be enjoying the Grotmas detachments. A lot of them, you have not majority of them, but you got a good chunk of them over 30% representation, and only a few of them are under like 10. So under 5. There's a few that are under 5. Then those ones we won't talk about. But overall, I think you can kind of look at this and say, the Grotmas detachments were a pretty big success. They had more of a success rate than they did a failure rate. If you're just looking at like win percentage and play rate, there's the ones at the bottom like 6, bottom 7, starting with the hex warp and down. Those are just, clearly they're not doing well, and clearly no one really wants to play them. Their representation is very low and their win percentage is very low. All right, and the last thing we're going to look at this week for Grotmas detachments is tournament wins. So at the top here we got Legion of Excess with 6 and Starshatter with 6. Now Starshatter, most of their wins came in the first 3 weeks. Ever since their nerf a couple weeks ago, they've only won once, but still 6 wins total. Legion of Excess has 6, and they've just been winning 1 or 2 every week pretty steadily. And then rounding out the bottom, you got Bridgehead with 3, Creations, Abaya with 2, Black Force with 2, Tactical Brigade with 2, and then at the bottom with 1 each you have Tau with Auxiliary Cadre, Librarius Conclave, Warpbane, Fly-Blown Host for Death Guard, and Scintillating Legion for Demons. So Demons do have 7 total, but overall it's pretty decent. Clearly there is some that have the sort of stopping power compared to others, but it's nice to see that these detachments are being played and getting some tournament wins. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this little detour from our normal scheduled programming. If you do like the video, make sure you like it, and helps push it out there for more people to see. And if you really liked it, don't forget to subscribe to make sure you get all my latest videos, and it would really help support me, and I really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you next week.